The morning sun rose gently over Enchantia, painting the castle towers in soft pink and gold. Birds sang in the royal garden, and the faint sound of Clover munching on a carrot echoed through Sophia's room. "Clover," Sophia giggled, brushing her long brown hair, "you've eaten 3 carrots already. You'll be late for breakfast." "Breakfast can wait," Clover replied between bites, "but a good carrot can't." Sophia rolled her eyes affectionately and looked out the window. Today wasn't just any ordinary day. It was a special one. Royal Prep's Royal Responsibility Day. She said excitedly, "We're learning what it really means to serve our kingdom." Clover tilted his head. "Serve? Like waiting tables?" Sophia laughed. "Not quite. It means learning how to take care of others, helping the people who depend on us." With her amulet sparkling around her neck, Sophia grabbed her satchel and hurried down to the carriage. Amber was already waiting, looking elegant in her new purple gown. "Good morning, little sister," Amber said with a knowing smile. "Are you ready for another royal challenge?" Sophia smiled brightly. "Always." When they arrived at Royal Prep, the courtyard buzzed with excitement. Princess Vivian was tuning her lute. Prince Hugo was practicing skating spins in the air, and even Princess Hildegard had brought a stack of books taller than herself. Miss Flora, Miss Fauna, and Miss Merriweather floated above the crowd, waving their wand for silence. "Welcome, students." Miss Flora began. "Today is Royal Responsibility Day, a time to learn that being royal means more than gowns, crowns, or grand halls. It means caring for others, listening, and giving back to your kingdom." Sophia nodded, inspired. Miss Fauna clapped her hands. "Each of you will choose a way to serve, helping the castle, the gardens, or the village," Merriweather added. "And remember, kindness is the best royal accessory." The students scattered eagerly. Amber immediately signed up for palace hosting, saying, "I'll greet the guests and make sure everything sparkles." Hugo picked stable training. "Horses and I, we get each other," he said confidently. Vivian and Hildegard joined the library helpers, while Sophia stood thoughtfully before the list. "What will you choose, Sophia?" Vivian asked. Sophia smiled. "I think I'll go to the village. I want to see how people live outside the castle. Maybe help where it's needed most." Miss Flora's eyes twinkled. "A noble choice, Princess Sophia. You'll learn much from the people of Enchantia." That afternoon, Sophia arrived in the village square. Children were playing near the fountain. Merchants called out cheerfully, and the smell of fresh bread filled the air. Mrs. Higgins, the baker, smiled when she saw her. "Why, Princess Sophia, what an honor. What brings you here?" Sophia curtsied. "I came to help. It's Royal Responsibility Day at school." Mrs. Higgins chuckled. "Well, we could use an extra pair of hands in the bakery, if you don't mind getting a little flour on that lovely gown." Sophia giggled. "I don't mind at all." She spent the next hour kneading dough, sprinkling sugar, and handing out pastries to cheerful villagers. Her laughter mixed with theirs as she realized something simple but powerful. Joy grew strongest when shared. But as the afternoon wore on, a soft rain began to fall. Children hurried to find shelter, and one little girl, Emma, tripped and dropped her basket of flowers. Sophia rushed over, helping her pick them up. "Are you okay?" Sophia asked. Emma nodded shyly. "I'm fine, Princess. I just want to surprise my mom with flowers for her birthday." Sophia smiled. "Then let's make them even better." Together, they gathered the flowers and tied them with a royal ribbon from Sophia's satchel. The girl's eyes lit up. "Thank you," Emma whispered. "You're really kind." Sophia's heart warmed. That's what being a princess is all about. When Sophia returned to Royal Prep that evening, her gown was dusted with flour, and her hands smelled faintly of cinnamon. Amber gasped. "Sophia, you look a mess." Sophia giggled. "Maybe, but I also learned the sweetest lesson." Miss Flora smiled knowingly. "And what's that, dear?" "That being royal isn't about what we wear," Sophia said softly, "but about what we do." The fairy instructors exchanged proud looks. Miss Fauna said warmly, "Well spoken, Princess Sophia. That's the spirit of royal responsibility." As Sophia climbed into her carriage for home, Clover hopped onto her lap. "So, how was your royal day at school?" Sophia smiled at the glowing sunset. "It was perfect, Clover. I didn't just learn about being royal. I learned how to be kind." The carriage rolled away under a sky streaked with gold. The start of a day Sophia would never forget. A royal day filled with laughter, learning, and love. Sparkles. The next morning, the sound of rain softly pattered against Sophia's window. She opened the curtains to find Enchantia covered in a silver mist. Even the royal garden seemed to sparkle under the drizzle. Another royal school day. Sophia said brightly, tying her amulet around her neck. Clover yawned from his cushion. "Royal school or not, I'd rather stay home and nap," he mumbled. Sophia giggled, giving him a pat. "You can rest, Clover. I'll tell you everything when I get back." By the time Sophia reached Royal Prep, the courtyard was buzzing again. Miss Flora floated forward, clapping her hands. "Good morning, everyone. Today's royal responsibility lesson is about teamwork, learning to work together for the good of the kingdom." Amber raised an eyebrow. "Teamwork? You mean sharing credit?" Sophia chuckled. "More like sharing effort, Amber." Miss Fauna added, "You'll each be in a group to complete a royal challenge. The challenge will test your ability to communicate, listen, and lead." Miss Merriweather waved her wand and, with a twinkle, floating cards appeared before each student. Sophia looked at hers. It read, Team 1, Sophia, Hugo, Vivian, and Amber. Amber gasped. "You and Hugo? Oh, this should be interesting." Hugo grinned mischievously. "Relax, Amber. I'll make us win." Sophia smiled politely. "Let's just try to work well first." Miss Flora clapped her hands again. "Your task is to build a bridge across the royal creek in the garden, using only the materials provided, wood, vines, and rope. Remember, no magic until the end." Amber sighed dramatically. "Manual labor? Really?" Vivian smiled shyly. "I think it sounds fun. We can do it together." The four of them hurried outside. The royal creek sparkled under the rain, bubbling cheerfully as frogs croaked nearby. Wooden planks, rope, and vines lay neatly stacked on the bank. Hugo grabbed a plank and swung it onto his shoulder. "Easy. I'll build it myself." Sophia shook her head. "That's not teamwork. Hugo, we're supposed to do it together." Amber crossed her arms. "Well, I'm not touching vines. They're sticky." Vivian stepped forward, her kind eyes gentle. "How about we each take a part? Sophia, you design it. Hugo, you can lift and place the wood. I'll tie the vines. Amber, you can polish and decorate when it's done." Amber's eyes lit up. "Decorate? Now that's my specialty." Sophia smiled. "Perfect idea, Vivian. Let's get started." The rain lightened into a drizzle as they began their work. Hugo struggled at first to balance the planks. Sophia held them steady, and Vivian tied vines around them with impressive skill. Amber added ribbons and little flowers along the edges, making it look elegant. When the final plank slipped out of place, Sophia caught it just in time. "Got it," she said, steadying it. "Nice save," Hugo admitted, grinning. For the first time that day, they all laughed together. By afternoon, the bridge was finished, sturdy, beautiful, and made by teamwork. Miss Flora floated over to inspect. "Oh my, what a wonderful example of cooperation." Amber smirked proudly. "And style." Vivian giggled. "Mostly teamwork." Sophia smiled. "Everyone helped. That's what made it strong." Hugo nodded, a little sheepish. Okay. Teamwork really is better than doing alone." Miss Fauna beamed. "That's the spirit, Prince Hugo." As the class ended, Sophia lingered by the bridge, admiring the way it shimmered in the soft afternoon sun. Amber joined her. Amber said softly, "I still like being in charge, but working together wasn't so bad." Sophia smiled. "It's easier when everyone listens to each other." Amber nodded thoughtfully. "Maybe you should teach that lesson at home, too." They both giggled. As the royal carriage took them back to Enchantia, Sophia thought about how everyone had contributed something unique. Strength, creativity, patience, and kindness. And she realized something she'd remember forever. Being a princess isn't about leading alone. It's about leading together. Clover greeted her at the door that evening, nibbling a cookie. "So, how was school today?" Sophia sat beside him, brushing rain from her cloak. "We built a bridge with teamwork." Clover blinked. "You mean a real bridge?" "Yes," Sophia smiled, "but also the kind you can't see, the kind that connects friends." Clover nodded wisely. Guess teamwork's not just for squirrels." They both laughed, the sound echoing softly through the castle halls. Another lesson learned, another royal day completed. Sparkling Heart. The next morning dawned bright and golden over Enchantia. Sophia's carriage clattered along the cobblestone path toward royal prep, and she couldn't help but feel a flutter of excitement in her chest. Today was no ordinary school day. It was the Royal Science Fair. Inside the grand hall, colorful banners draped from the ceiling, and tables glittered with experiments, inventions, and even a few magical contraptions gone slightly wrong. The smell of fresh paint and a hint of potion fumes filled the air. Princess Hildegard was already showing off her mirror of marvels, which supposedly reflected your best qualities. Amber stood beside her, admiring her reflection. "See? It shows I'm graceful and fashionable." Sophia giggled. "Or maybe it's enchanted to flatter princesses." "Even better," Amber replied with a wink. Miss Flora clapped her hands at the front of the hall. "Good morning, class. Today's Royal Science Fair will test not just your creativity, but also how well you understand the magic and logic that keep our kingdoms thriving." Miss Fauna smiled gently. "Remember, science isn't only potions and explosions. It's understanding the world around you." Sophia nodded thoughtfully. She already had an idea brewing. When she reached her project table, Vivian waved excitedly. "Sophia, over here." Vivian had brought her latest experiment, a set of enchanted crystals that glowed with sound waves. Sophia's eyes widened. "Wow, that's amazing." Vivian smiled shyly. "Thanks. What's your project?" Sophia placed a small wooden model on her table. "It's a self-watering garden. My mom and I used the garden a lot before I became a princess. I thought, what if flowers could water themselves with magic that reacts to sunlight?" Vivian's eyes sparkled. "That's so clever, and so you—" Just then, Hugo rolled up beside them, carrying what looked like a mechanical snowball launcher. "Behold, the Frost Blaster 3000. Perfect for keeping your cocoa cool on royal picnics." Sophia stifled a laugh. "It's very creative, Hugo." Hugo grinned proudly. "You'll thank me in summer." Amber walked by, her project floating behind her on a golden cushion. "Stand back, everyone. The royal perfume fountain." She waved her wand dramatically, and a cloud of glittery mist puffed into the air. The sweet smell of roses and sugar filled the room. Miss Merriweather quickly waved her wand to clear the air. "Lovely idea, Amber, but next time perhaps less sparkle?" Amber coughed delicately. "Noted." As the fair went on, the judges moved from table to table. Professor Popov examined each project with his monocle gleaming. When he reached Sophia's station, he smiled kindly. "Ah, Princess Sophia, what do we have here?" Sophia pressed a button, and her little garden came to life. The wooden sun above it glowed warmly, and droplets of sparkling water trickled down into the tiny flower pots. The blossoms shimmered, blooming in perfect rhythm with the light. "It works by drawing in sunlight and turning it into moisture," Sophia explained. "So even if someone forgets to water their plants, nature still takes care of them." Professor Popov nodded approvingly. "Remarkable. A perfect blend of nature, magic, and compassion." Amber whispered to Hildegard. "Trust Sophia to make something practical and sweet." Sophia caught the whisper and smiled, taking it as a compliment. Suddenly, a loud boom echoed from across the room. Everyone turned to see Hugo's Frost Blaster 3000 spewing snowflakes wildly in every direction. Oh, Hugo yelped. "It's supposed to make tiny snowflakes." Miss Flora floated up and waved her wand, freezing the machine mid-blast. The entire hall was now covered in a thin blanket of snow. Miss Flora sighed. "Creativity points for enthusiasm, Prince Hugo. Perhaps next time, test it outside." The whole class burst into laughter, even Hugo. Guess I overdid it, he admitted. Sophia helped him sweep some snow off the floor. Don't worry, Hugo. Science is about learning from mistakes, too. Yeah, he grinned, especially the cool ones. When the results were announced, Sophia's project received a blue ribbon for most thoughtful design. Amber's perfume fountain won most stylish, and Hugo's frost blaster, after a lot of laughter, won most entertaining. Miss Fauna smiled proudly at the group. You see, class, science, like life, works best when everyone brings something different to the table. As Sophia left the fair that afternoon, she carried her little garden carefully in her hands. The petals glowed softly in the fading light, just like the kindness she'd learned to nurture, both in plants and in people. Amber linked her arm with hers. You know, Sophia, I think your invention would make a perfect royal gift. Sophia laughed, maybe one for every kingdom. And as they walked toward their carriage, their laughter echoed down the royal halls. Proof that learning could be magical, fun, and full of heart. The sun rose high above Royal Prep Academy, glimmering off the castle spires like golden ribbons in the sky. The air buzzed with excitement, because today was one of the most awaited events of the semester, the Royal Games. Sophia leaped from her carriage, her lavender gown fluttering in the morning breeze. She had barely stepped onto the courtyard when she spotted her classmates practicing their moves, balancing crowns, racing through obstacle paths, and even perfecting their royal curtsies mid-run. Hugo, of course, was showing off again. The key is balance and confidence, he said, twirling a small wooden sword. You can't win without style. Amber rolled her eyes. You can't win with too much style either. You might trip on your ego. Sophia giggled, smoothing her skirt. Let's just have fun today, okay? Miss Flora floated to the center of the courtyard, her wand sparkling with excitement. Welcome, everyone, to our annual Royal Games. These games are not about magic, but about grace, courage, teamwork, and sportsmanship. All the qualities a true royal must master. Miss Merriweather held up a parchment. Each team will face a series of challenges: balance, bravery, and brains. And remember, helping your teammates is as important as finishing first. Then we're ready, Hugo said, puffing out his chest. Sophia smiled. We've got this. Together. The courtyard had been transformed into a glittering arena with pink banners and golden hurdles. Each participant had to race while balancing a royal crown on their head. Sophia lined up beside Amber, Hugo, and Vivian, her teammates from the science fair. The whistle blew, and they were off. Hugo sprinted first, but halfway through, his crown tilted dangerously. Whoa! He yelped, steadying it with one hand. No hands, Hugo! Amber shouted, laughing. Vivian whispered nervously, It's harder than it looks. When it was Sophia's turn, she moved gracefully, her steps small and measured. She remembered what Bailiwick once told her. Being royal is about poise, not speed. She crossed the finish line with her crown perfectly balanced. Their team came in second, not first, but strong. Amber smiled approvingly. Not bad, little sister. You might make a fine debutante one day. Sophia grinned. Thanks, Amber. I'll take that as a compliment. Next came the maze, a twisting path filled with puzzles, moving hedges, and friendly magical creatures. Each team had to find a hidden royal crest before time ran out. Inside the maze, fog swirled around them. This place gives me goosebumps, Vivian whispered. Hugo marched ahead. No worries. I've got a great sense of direction. 5 minutes later, they were lost. Amber groaned. Some great sense of direction, Hugo. Sophia knelt to look at the ground. She noticed faint golden footprints leading toward the left. Wait, these footprints look enchanted. Maybe they lead to the crest. They followed the trail, solving riddles and working together to move enchanted gates. When a small baby griffin blocked their path, Sophia gently spoke to it. It's okay, she said softly. We're not here to hurt you. The griffin tilted its head, then stepped aside, revealing the shining royal crest. Sophia smiled. See? Sometimes bravery means kindness, too. Amber whispered. You always find a gentle way, don't you? They ran out just in time. The second team again, but still glowing with pride. The last event was a sky race, on enchanted flying carpets. The whole school gathered as the teams mounted their carpets. Miss Flora raised her wand. Remember, speed is important, but so is safety. The whistle blew. Carpets zoomed into the sky, like shooting stars. Sophia held on tight as her carpet wove between towers. Hugo shouted from beside her, "Try to keep up, Princess!" Sophia grinned. I plan to win fair and square. Amber, though nervous, managed to stay steady, her curls bouncing in the wind. "If I fall, you're all in trouble," she called. Vivian laughed behind her. "You're doing great, Amber." The race twisted around clouds and over the lake, where sunlight glimmered like diamonds. Near the finish line, Hugo's carpet wobbled dangerously after hitting a gust of wind. "Whoa!" he cried. Without thinking, Sophia steered close and reached out. "Grab my hand," she shouted. He did, steadying himself. Together, they crossed the finish line, not first, but side by side. The crowd erupted in cheers. Miss Flora clapped her hands, beaming, a perfect example of royal teamwork. That evening, as the sun set behind the golden spires, the students gathered for the ceremony. Miss Merriweather awarded each team a medal, not just for winning, but for demonstrating royal values. Sophia's team received the medal for outstanding team spirit. Amber smiled proudly. "I suppose teamwork isn't so bad after all." Sophia nodded. "We didn't win every race, but we did win something better." Hugo tilted his medal. "Yeah, friendship, and maybe a little humility." They all laughed together, the kind of laughter that felt warm and true. As Sophia rode home in the royal carriage, the day's lessons echoed in her mind. Being royal wasn't about winning every challenge. It was about how you lifted others along the way. And for Sophia, that was the most royal lesson of all. Sparkling heart. The next morning, Sophia awoke to soft beams of sunlight pouring into her royal bedroom. Clover was still half asleep beside her, nibbling on a biscuit he'd hidden under his paw. "Big day again," he mumbled. Sophia smiled, brushing her hair. "Every day's big when you're learning how to be a better princess." She slipped on her lavender gown and headed toward the carriage waiting outside. As it rolled through Enchantia's gardens, she noticed something unusual. A small bird was caught in a vine near the castle gate, flapping its wings helplessly. "Oh no!" Sophia gasped, stopping the carriage. She gently freed the little creature, humming softly until it calmed down. "There you go. You're safe now." The bird chirped gratefully before flying away, and Sophia smiled to herself. It was such a small thing, but it reminded her how kindness always found a way to make the day brighter. By the time she arrived at Royal Prep, the courtyard buzzed with energy. Miss Fauna stood at the center, her gentle voice ringing over the crowd. "Today's lesson is about something far more important than charm or grace," she said warmly. "Today, we will test your kindness." Amber tilted her head. "Kindness? We already do that every day." Miss Fauna smiled knowingly. "Kindness isn't just about being polite, dear. It's about helping even when it's not easy, when it means giving something up." Miss Flora floated beside her. "Each of you will be given a situation where your kindness will be tested. Remember, the smallest act can make the biggest difference." The students exchanged curious looks. Sophia's heart fluttered with curiosity and a touch of excitement. Miss Merriweather waved her wand, and golden scrolls appeared in the air, fluttering down into each student's hands. Sophia opened hers. It read, "Find a way to bring happiness to someone who feels forgotten." She smiled softly. That sounded just right. Hugo groaned at his. "Mine says, share something you value most." "That's hard." Amber sighed dramatically. "Oh, please. I'm sure mine will involve helping someone messy." She opened her scroll, reading aloud, "Help a classmate who needs encouragement." She frowned. "Well, that's not too bad, as long as it's not Hugo." Sophia giggled, tucking her scroll into her bag. "Let's see who we can help first." After class, Sophia wandered the hallways, watching her classmates eagerly begin their kindness challenges. Hildegard complimented James on his fencing. Vivian gave her lunch to a hungry squirrel she found near the garden. And even Hugo tried giving his royal snacks to a younger student. Still, Sophia felt like her mission was waiting somewhere else. Then she noticed one of the younger princesses, Princess Lonnie from the Isle of Tea, sitting quietly under a staircase. Her tiara was tilted, and she was drawing on her parchment alone. Sophia approached gently. "Hi there, Lonnie. What are you drawing?" The little princess looked up, startled. "Oh, hi, Princess Sophia. It's just a picture of my home. No one really talks to me here. They already have their friends." Sophia's heart softened. She sat beside her. "That must feel hard. I remember when I was new here, too. I didn't know how to fit in either." Lonnie looked surprised. "Really? But everyone likes you." Sophia smiled. "They do now. But when I first arrived, I felt like I didn't belong. You just need someone to show you that you already do." She took out her little music locket. "How about I show you my favorite Royal Prep song? Maybe we can sing together?" Lonnie's face lit up. "Really? You'd sing with me?" Sophia nodded and began to hum softly. The melody was warm and gentle, wrapping through the hallway like sunlight. Soon Lonnie joined in, her shy voice blending beautifully with Sophia's. When the song ended, a few students had gathered around, clapping. Amber, passing by, paused to listen. "That was lovely," she admitted. "I think you just made her day." Sophia smiled. "That was the goal." Miss Fauna, who had been watching quietly from nearby, floated forward. "Princess Sophia, you've done something truly kind today. You didn't just cheer someone up. You reminded her she belongs. That is the heart of true kindness." Sophia felt her heart glow. "Thank you, Miss Fauna. But honestly, it felt like she helped me, too." That evening, as the carriage rolled back toward the castle, Sophia thought about everything that had happened. The laughter, the song, the smile on Lonnie's face. Clover looked up as she entered her room. "So, what did you learn today?" he asked, stretching. Sophia smiled softly. "That kindness isn't about doing big things. It's about seeing someone who feels small and helping them feel big again." Clover yawned. "That's deep. I'll remember that next time I share my cookie crumbs." Sophia giggled and looked out the window, where stars twinkled above Enchantia like tiny golden hearts. Tomorrow would bring another royal lesson, but for tonight, her heart felt perfectly full. Sparkling heart. The next morning began with a sparkle of sunlight over Enchantia, and Sophia awoke feeling lighter than ever. The kindness challenge had ended, but the warmth it brought still lingered in her heart. As she brushed her hair in front of her mirror, Clover yawned from his spot near the window. "So, what's on today's royal school schedule? More kindness? Or maybe a nap competition?" he teased, scratching his ear. Sophia laughed. "Today's lesson is all about teamwork. Miss Flora said it's going to be something special." Clover raised an eyebrow. Special usually means sparkles, and sparkles mean chaos. Sophia grinned. "You might be right." When she arrived at Royal Prep, the grand hall buzzed with chatter. Students gathered around as the three headmistresses floated to the front, wands glowing with pastel light. "Today," Miss Flora announced, "you'll all work together to complete a royal harmony task." The students looked at each other in curiosity. Miss Merriweather continued, "Each team will have to build a little float that represents friendship, using materials you'll find in the royal gardens." Amber gasped. "Build something? With our hands?" Miss Fauna smiled. "Yes, dear. A little creativity goes a long way in friendship." The fairies waved their wands, and names appeared in pairs across the floating parchment. Sophia scanned the list and smiled when she saw hers. She'd been paired with Hugo. Hugo looked a little uneasy. Hey, Sophia. I'm not really the crafty type." Sophia chuckled. "That's okay. We'll figure it out together." Outside, the gardens were bright with morning light. Butterflies fluttered between hedges, and a soft breeze carried the scent of lilac. Each pair began gathering supplies: ribbons, flowers, tiny bells, and enchanted leaves that glowed faintly. Sophia knelt beside a rose bush, gently trimming a few petals. "I think we can build a float shaped like a heart. It could show that true friendship comes from caring." Hugo scratched his head. "Or maybe we make like a flying ship. Friendship that sails through any storm." Sophia giggled. "That's actually a wonderful idea. Let's combine both a heart-shaped ship." They got to work, weaving vines into gentle curves and adding magical orbs for light. Sophia placed a few pink petals for detail, while Hugo carefully tied ribbon for sails. Every so often, he'd fumble with a knot, and Sophia would laugh, show him how to fix it. Teamwork, she reminded him kindly, isn't about who's better. It's about helping each other shine. By midday, the float began to take shape. Other teams had beautiful creations. Amber and Hildegard made a golden carriage of elegance, while James and Vivian built a miniature castle. But Sophia's and Hugo's looked different. Simple, colorful, and glowing softly with a magic that felt alive. When the fairies returned to judge, the students gathered around eagerly. Miss Flora floated above the first float. Amber and Hildegard, splendid design, she said. Then she paused at Sophia's and Hugo's creation. Oh my, what do we have here? Sophia explained softly. It's a friendship ship made to remind us that friends help us stay afloat, even when things get tough. Miss Fauna smiled warmly. That's beautiful, Sophia, and it glows with true harmony. Miss Merriweather nodded. Magic like that only appears when hearts work together. As the crowd admired it, Hugo smiled proudly. I guess teamwork isn't so bad after all. Sophia grinned. Told you. But just then, a sudden gust of wind whooshed across the garden. One of the ribbons on their float came loose, and the little heart ship began to wobble. Oh no! Hugo exclaimed, trying to grab it. Sophia reached out quickly, her amulet glimmering with soft light. Come on, stay with us, she whispered. The magic from her amulet shimmered around the float, steadying it just in time. When the light faded, the float floated perfectly again, now even brighter than before. The students clapped, and Miss Flora's eyes twinkled. That's the true magic of friendship, trust, courage, and care. Later, as the day ended, Sophia and Hugo sat under a cherry tree, watching the sunset. I didn't think I'd enjoy something like this, Hugo admitted. But working with you made it fun. Sophia smiled. That's what friends are for. We make the hard things easier. Hugo nodded. And the easy things way more fun. They both laughed as the sky turned gold and pink. As Sophia rode home that evening, Clover greeted her with his usual grin. So, how'd the sparkle chaos go? Sophia laughed softly. It was actually magical, Clover. Today, I learned that when friends join hearts, even simple things can shine the brightest. She looked out at the glowing horizon of Enchantia, the reflection of the heart-shaped float still warm in her memory. Tomorrow, another royal lesson awaited. But tonight, her heart knew one thing for sure. The real magic of being a princess came not from crowns or carriages, but from the friendships that made her world sparkle. Sparkling Heart. The golden morning light streamed through Sophia's window, filling her room with a soft, rosy glow. Clover stretched and yawned from his little basket near the vanity. Another royal school day already, he muttered sleepily. Sophia smiled as she adjusted her amulet. It's the last day of this week's lessons. Miss Flora said we're going to have a reflection day to think about what we've learned. Clover blinked. Reflection, huh? Sounds fancy for sitting and talking. Sophia giggled. Maybe, but sometimes reflection helps us see how far we've come. When she arrived at Royal Prep, the halls shimmered with excitement. Students carried scrolls, sketches, and little creations from their week's projects, tokens of their learning. The fairies floated near the front, glowing like tiny stars. Good morning, everyone, Miss Flora called gently. Today, each of you will share something special, a moment this week when you learn what it truly means to be royal. Sophia looked around as her classmates shared one by one. Amber spoke first, her crown glinting. I learned that elegance is more than just how you dress. It's how you make others feel. James stood next, grinning. I learned that helping others doesn't make you less strong. It actually makes you braver. Vivian spoke softly about courage and creativity, and Hugo talked about how teamwork could be fun, even if it meant getting glue on his royal gloves. Sophia smiled proudly at them all. Then Miss Flora turned to her. Princess Sofia, what about you, dear? Sophia hesitated for a moment, her fingers brushing her amulet. I think I've learned that being royal isn't about rules or titles. It's about kindness and how we treat others, no matter where we come from. The fairies exchanged a knowing smile. Miss Fauna floated closer. And how did you learn that lesson, Sophia? Sophia looked down for a moment, remembering all the little moments that made up her week. Comforting Amber when she was frustrated, building the friendship float with Hugo, helping the younger students in the garden. She looked back up, her eyes bright. Because every time I tried to do something alone, it didn't feel right, she said softly. But when I work with my friends, when we listened to each other, shared our ideas, and cared, everything just glowed. Miss Merriweather dabbed at her eyes with a handkerchief. That's the spirit, dear. Miss Flora nodded. A true princess shines not because of her crown, but because of her heart. The students applauded, and Sophia blushed, smiling shyly. But before anyone could say more, a sudden shimmer of magic sparkled in the air above them. The fairies turned in surprise as glowing petals began to drift down from nowhere, twinkling like tiny stars. Miss Flora gasped softly. The garden charm. It only appears when true harmony fills a school. The petals floated down gently, landing on every student's desk. Sophia caught one. It shimmered gold and pink, soft as a whisper. When it touched her palm, she felt warmth spread through her heart. The same feeling she got when her amulet glowed in moments of kindness. Amber gasped. It's so beautiful. James twirled his in the air. Looks like we passed our royal lessons with flying colors. The fairies chuckled. Indeed you have, Miss Fauna said, smiling. You've learned that true royalty isn't shown in power or perfection, but in the goodness you bring into the world. As the lesson ended, the students walked together through the garden, laughing and chatting. The heart-shaped float that Sophia and Hugo built still glowed softly near the fountain, a symbol of everything they'd learned that week. Hugo glanced at Sophia. You know, you were right about teamwork. But don't tell anyone I said that. Sophia giggled. Your secret's safe with me, Prince Hugo. Amber joined them, holding her golden petal close. I suppose being a good princess isn't just about style after all. Sophia smiled warmly. It's about heart, and we all have one that shines. As they reached the castle gates, Sophia looked back one last time at Royal Prep. Her magical school, filled with laughter, lessons, and friends who had become like family. When she returned home that evening, Queen Miranda greeted her at the door. How was school, my dear? Sophia hugged her mother tightly. It was wonderful. I learned that being a princess isn't about being perfect. It's about being kind. Miranda kissed her forehead. Then you've learned the most important lesson of all. That night, as Sophia gazed out her window at the starry sky over Enchantia, her amulet glowed softly, a gentle reminder that every act of kindness, every friendship, and every little lesson made her shine brighter than any crown ever could. She smiled and whispered to herself, a royal day at school and a royal heart to remember it by. The moon shimmered above, the castle lights twinkled below, and in the quiet night, Princess Sophia knew her journey, as both a princess and friend, had only just begun. Dizzy,